Hello, my name is Jonathan McPhillips, and thank you for checking out my video here of a painting demonstration. It is a 24-inch by 24-inch oil painting to be titled Supermoon Sunset. It is on linen canvas, and there you can see the picture popped up on the screen. That's my reference photo. So this is a photo I took of Nauset Beach on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I have a bunch of photos of this spot. This is one of my favorites. Yeah, this format's a little different for me. I don't always do it, but I do have some square canvases around now that I picked up over the winter. So there's a tone on there. You can see the light amber color underneath. That's all dry. I put that on a few days ago. So I like to start with that sort of earthy undertone. Gives the painting some overall warmth. So you notice I put in this big, long, horizontal brushstroke, or a series of brushstrokes, which are indicative of the wave and its location in the painting. Because the wave is such a focal element to the painting, I really want to put that in first, so I know where I'm going from there. And then from there I can move around to some other parts of the painting, especially at this early stage where I'm not too concerned about color. It's more about the values of dark and light, and I'm putting those values in almost like a sort of a brownish earth tone, much like the original tone of the canvas, but I'm building up the darkness. But I am maintaining a certain thinness to the paint. I try to keep my darks as thin as possible. It's not always possible all the time throughout the whole painting, but especially in the early stages, I like to keep my darks kind of thin. I do that by using mineral spirits and Galkyd. Galkyd is a fast drying medium made by Gamblin Paint Company, and Galkyd is really good for helping the paint flow and also for it to set up, meaning dry a little bit sooner than normally would without it. And the mineral spirits also evaporate pretty quickly too when you use them this thinly. You see, I just had a little rag in my hand, or actually it was a little paper towel that kind of I'm reusing them quite often now. They're in a little bit of short order at this point. So I wipe out little areas that I want to recover some of my white, and you can see that would be the foam of the breaking wave. Not rendering exactly. I leave myself open to many changes to come. So I don't make a lot of commitments to myself, or essentially to the painting at this point. I'm just putting in some big areas that that are following a general intention that I have. You see I moved into some actual color, still not the final colors that the painting will eventually have, but getting closer. I did mix up some ultramarine and some raw sienna, and probably a little bit of sap green. Not too much of that though, but no specific formula in that. I'm just getting a dark, nice ocean water color that I tend to see a lot, and I'm trying to replicate that as I've painted on site many times. I'm in the studio here, obviously, so I'm trying to bring some of that experience outdoors to studio work indoors. It's kind of where the photograph is not followed very strictly. It's my inspiration, more so compositionally than anything. So I get my thoughts and my ideas, and certain elements may translate into the painting, but for the most part, a lot of the photograph is really sort of abandoned after the composition and design concept is in. The colors following the photograph is not. Some people like to do it. I don't really do that. It's just my preferred way of working. So But I always like having the photograph up there. It brings me back to reminding myself of what I maybe shouldn't do, or in some cases what I should do. You see, there's a lot of kind of rapid movement here, and I'm really making big brush strokes, moving from spot to spot, jumping around the canvas. I do that very much in the early stages to try to fill things pretty quickly. It helps me keep my, I don't get locked into one spot for too long, because then I'll just get lost in it, and I'll stay there, and then the other parts of the painting they'll feel like they were painted at a different time or with a different intention if I stay in one area too long. So the activity of moving around to me sort of creates a cohesiveness in the end. If nothing else, just the action of the painting is to me comes across as something that had a whole intention to it, and I'm not too good any longer at working at small areas, like for instance doing one corner of a painting and slowly moving to the next. Some people like to work that way, and I totally get it, because I used to work that way to some degree, and just moved on to a different method of filling the canvas. You see, I even have the horizon sort of in the ocean way out in the distance. I'm kind of blocking that in right now. It's a term used for this sort of stage of the painting very often, is just blocking it in, where it's detail is not of a high concern at the moment. So even that color right there that I have, which is the sky, sort of dark. As I'm painting this, my intentions are that it will be much lighter in the end, and brighter, and more intense. But for now, I can put this darker value down, and I can lay the paint on top of it later. It's really just sort of an indication to me that that value is going to be a little bit lighter than the ocean plane in front of it, as well as the foreground. And of course, the wave face that really goes vertical and shoots up is essentially the darkest part of the painting. I like to sometimes make the horizon lines softer than they might appear in nature. Just another preference of mine. That's not, it's not the way, it's not the one way to do it. It's just I kind of like to have that softened up for visual purposes, at least some of it. But again, it's a little early for that kind of stuff. That's edge work, which will usually come later. So that's going to come back and forth between being a hard edge and a soft edge as I continue to put color on top of that horizon and sky joining there where they come together. That's going to develop a bit more. But you can see when I do fill in the whole canvas a bit, there's a big leap towards making sense in some way. So you can see I have a little spot I left open for the moon. I actually may shift that later towards the middle a little bit more. I don't want to drop it dead center, I don't think. Sometimes I try to avoid the dead center, the lines that it would be running right down the middle, compositionally speaking. Not that you can't do it sometimes and have it work, but I think I'm a little over to the left a little bit. So this is good because I get to critique myself too as I voice over here what I had done. Yeah, so now I'm brushing in some of that the flat water that sits in front of the wave. the breaking wave. And it's interesting because I have to, at some point you're going to start to see here, I'll have the white foam start to come into play, and I have that, plus I have water that doesn't have foam on it. It has the reflection of the sky. For blue, it also has a little bit of transparency that can sometimes be enhanced for the painting purposes. So you'll see that develop. Right now it's very dark in that middle ground, that the water area, but you can tell by the photograph that there will be some foam that I need to address, and I have to figure out that balance of how much will be foam and how much will be water. It may be different than the photograph, again, to try to make my painting feel more natural. Even here I switched to a little bit of a smaller brush. It's probably a number 4 or number 6 that I'm using. And boy, I mean, at this point, I can also, there's enough paint down where I can pull paint from, I don't even have to really mix a lot on the palette in front of me, my tabletop there. I can just almost pull paint from areas that are already on the canvas and use it and push it around and move it the way I want. Some of these big brush strokes will hopefully translate through in the final painting. You know, things will slow down a little bit, and but I still try to keep that energy visible, the energy that I have in these early stages. And I try to paint still with a sort of with a very loose approach, even later in the painting. But I'm also starting to pay a little more attention to some of the details at that point too. So I always like this phase of the painting. Sometimes it's my favorite. I think a lot of artists joke that there's points early on in the painting when maybe they should stop. Some artists are doing a great job working with you know, real just tonalist paintings that are almost like really enhanced, expanded versions of the initial stages of paintings that would otherwise have more color on them. So it's a lot of interesting things going on with that kind of stuff. But every phase of the painting has a different level of judgment it comes across. And I'd say this phase for mine, I kind of like them the most at this point. And then I like them again at the end most of the time. So sometimes be a lot of struggle and toil in between now and then, though, in the process. I have a little bit more sort of darker lines out there that are trying to indicate swells and waves further behind. They probably weren't as prevalent in the photograph, but for my painting, I kind of want them out there to break up that thin band of blue ocean that will eventually be a little bit more defined, of course. But so now there's some of that white foam going in. I did bring in a little bit of titanium white for that, but it's not really that bright. It's still dark, so it gives me breathing room to build the lights on top of that. This is almost like another small phase of design at this point, where I'm switching back to that, the thought process of what is the drawing going to be like in this painting? Where are the lines going to be, and the directionals? So this is about nearing the end of what I'd kind of consider the first phase. So I'm just going to let it play out here for a little bit, and I hope you join me on the next part of the painting. Thank you.